All right, some of you may have just gotten a lot of silence from me, but welcome to our Q&A session, our wonderful Q&A session. Thank you so much for being here. Let me just make sure that everybody's getting logged in and checking out and making sure that everything is going good. So I'm gonna randomly choose somebody, ask you if you can see the stream. You able to see the stream? Oh, we've got a long delay here, I just realized. Well, we will just deal with that long delay. That's something I can change for next week, but I will get that going. Let me turn off my volume over here and we'll be ready to go. Okie dokie. Well, guys, I'm glad that you're here. This is a fun time every week that we get to spend together with a weekly coaching call / question and answer time and all that kind of fun stuff. So I really enjoy this opportunity to get to interact with you guys. I want you to tell your friends, get involved, ask questions, because that's what this is all about. We're here to learn together. And if I've got some knowledge that I can share with you guys, then I want to give it to you freely. That's what separates our whole organization here, CreativeCashFlow.com. It's what separates us out from a lot of, most of the educational outlets that you might have heard of out there. So we want to be very specific. We want to give you really actionable information. It's something that's very important to me that you're getting real information and not just, you know, some Joe Schmo telling you about something that they heard about that they can do, you know, in some other state. So we do want to be sure that when there is a there we go. There's one of my, I need to turn that off. Okay, cool. This is, by the way, that annoying noise is if one of my personal mentor students texts me. I give all of my personal mentor students a 2-hour turnaround time for my response. So I found a way through an app called Tasker, which we may go over someday because it's actually kind of a cool way to do things. It's like if then that app. It's like that on steroids. You're really able to get a lot of stuff done with that one. Really, basically, if you can imagine it, you can have it done. As long as you're on an Android. I have both iOS and Android devices, but that is an Android-specific one, and I have it turn up my volume no matter what's happening, if it's do not disturb or anything like that. The only thing that is going to keep it from making that super annoying noise is if the phone is actually off. So you guys might want to use that for something like your seller lead system, because you can have it check your emails, check text messages, check for certain text within a text message. So we may talk about that someday. We may talk about how to set up some systems so that your leads never get missed, because that is, at the end of the day, extremely important to make sure that we are getting all of our leads there. Okay, great. So here we go. I do have a question that got submitted early, so I'm going to find that one because I know that we've got that in here. Let me find that. This one is from James. So let's go ahead and just dive in here. Hello, I have 3 questions for tonight. And by the way, anybody that's watching this, remember, you've got that little chat box in the bottom right. So make sure if you have any questions, go ahead and check that. Or I'm sorry, go ahead and tap on that. Write me the question. I will be monitoring it here. But I'm going to go ahead and start off with this question that we've got from James. I have 3 questions for tonight for the Q&A. Does HUD outlaw the wrapping of an FHA loan? Or are there any types of loans that we cannot use subject to and subsequently owner finance out? So no, it does have a due on sale clause. Just like any of these other loans that we're talking about, they do have due on sale clauses. But nothing outlaws the use of subject to on any of these guys. Now we do have to be aware, again, that look, when we buy this house, that does trigger the due on sale clause, and that does allow the bank to then decide to call the loan due if, excuse me, oh, I'm tapping the mic here, if they so choose. But the chances of that happening are very slim. If you are doing things the right way, as you've been instructed in the rest of these videos and through your academy, if you're doing things the right way, it shouldn't be an issue. You should be able to do your sub 2 on anything without an issue, but we've got to be aware that due on sale clauses out there. Now, FHA, that's not a big deal. I got plenty of FHA loans. Conventional, not a big deal. Got plenty of conventional loans. The one that gets a little bit tricky, and this is only for the fact that people who are able to get this type of loan are only able to have, I believe, one of them outstanding, and that may have changed in the not so distant past. I think they might have two now, but I believe it's just one with VA loans. VA loans. Now, people who are able to get a VA loan, that is somebody who used to serve in the military or currently serves in the military. The military allows them, it's a veteran's loan. The military allows them to get a loan with like 0 down payment. It's got typically some pretty good terms to it, that kind of thing. People who are able to get VA loans really like having VA loans. So it's not that it's illegal, it's not like that you're unable to do a sub 2 on a VA loan, but it does become very difficult to do a sub 2 on a VA loan because your seller wants to go off and use VA loan for their next home purchase. Now, when we're talking about sellers getting another home, as we know, it's usually just fine for a seller to go get another home that's sold a property to you subject to. Typically, the way that it works is just as long as we are able to show and prove that we're the ones that are going to pay that loan and not the seller does not get that loan counted against them in their future underwriting to try and get a new loan. Okay? So in other words, and to expand on that a little bit, it used to be, a few years ago, the way that they would handle, like if I bought a subject to loan from Joe, well, Joe wants to go out and get a new mortgage. Right? But his name is still on this loan to Wells Fargo or whoever that we just bought subject to. It used to be that they would have to wait 12 months with us proving that we are paying that loan to Wells Fargo every month before a new bank would allow Joe to get a loan with them without counting any of that debt towards their debt-to-income ratio. Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about debt-to-income ratios as time goes on, and the compliance stuff that will be coming out. We're currently working on those videos right now. I film every Wednesday, and the compliance stuff we'll talk more about what debt-to-income ratio is, that kind of thing. But what it boils down to is that your debt-to-income ratio is what is the gross income you get every month, and then in a percentage, what is that versus all of the long-term debt. Now, that counts as like a home loan, that counts as a car payment, that kind of stuff that you're going to have to pay for a long term. All of that in a percentage to your gross before taxes income, that's your debt-to-income ratio. So if we bought a house from Joe, Joe would then try to go to another bank and say, okay, hey, I want to get a new loan because I want to buy a new house. And the new bank would say, well, you still have this other loan to Wells Fargo, so we're going to count 33% of that loan towards your debt-to-income ratio. So if the payment was $900, they were going to count $300 of that Wells Fargo loan towards Joe's debt-to-income ratio when they were doing the new mortgage. This is important because new mortgages, they have to stick under certain guidelines of what the DTI is for their sellers. One of the advantages that we have in our world is that we're what's called a small creditor. That gives us the ability to do some things that the big guys can't do. But the big boys, the guys that are doing over 500 loans a year, they've got more than $2 billion in assets, those guys have to stick to like a 43%, 50% debt-to-income ratio cap to have what's called that QM loan. That's what everybody's looking for. So the banks wanted to be under that. So that's why it's important to protect our sellers' debt-to-income ratio. Now, all that to say, time has passed, and nowadays, and for the last probably, I guess we started seeing this change maybe 2015, right around 2015. Now the underwriters, when Joe is trying to get a new mortgage, all you have to do is show the underwriter your documentation that says, like closing documents, whatever, that says that you are paying for Joe's mortgage. And now the new underwriter won't count any of Joe's mortgage against their debt-to-income ratio, so it makes it much easier for Joe to get a new mortgage, okay? Now, anytime we're talking about that, and I refer to this all the time, we tell them we don't have a crystal ball, we can't promise anything, we don't know for sure what that new underwriter is going to do, but basically, everyone that I've seen do that, and when I say basically, I mean literally, I mean every one of my sellers that's tried to go get another loan, it hasn't been an issue for them. But occasionally, we'll run into an underwriter that doesn't do that with the debt-to-income ratio, not counting any of their previous loan. So we just refer them out to somebody else. If you need a referral for a lender that knows how to do that stuff, let me know. I can hand that out to you as well, and I'll try to remember to put that in our contacts section. We have a follow-up here from Tom. Tom, thanks for joining in here. Tom says, I saw this on a VA loan inside of the deed of trust. The quote is, this loan is not assumable without the approval of Department of Veterans Affairs or its authorized agent. Does that mean it can't be done as a subject to? And that's a really good question, Tom. That does not mean that it can't be done subject to. So sub 2 is different from assuming a loan. Assuming a loan would be like, okay, let's talk about Joe again. Joe wants to sell us his house. Now, if we were going to assume Joe's loan to Wells Fargo, what we would do is we would go to Wells Fargo, we would sit down in front of a banker, we would show them all of our information, all of our financials, just like we were going to go be getting a loan for ourselves. And then Wells Fargo would approve us for that loan and remove Joe's name from it and put our name on it. And that's not what we're doing. We're not assuming that loan, because if we did that, now we're the ones that are responsible. If a foreclosure happens, it goes on our credit. Our credit report is being used for those payments, that kind of stuff. One of the beauties of Subject 2 is that we are not assuming that debt. We are promising to perform. Subject 2 is a promise to perform. Subject 2 is saying, I will buy your house. I will become the owner of the house. And in return, I will continue to pay these payments on your behalf. The loan is remaining in Joe's name. We're just making those payments. So it is a little bit different than an assumption. So again, the quote there, this loan is not assumable without the approval of the Department of Veteran Affairs or its authorized agent. Exactly. We are not assuming that loan. What's interesting is that like an FA loan or FHA loan is assumable. We just don't want to assume it. That's not what we're doing here. We may as well go get our own debt at that point in time. Here's another question. What happens if the seller of a house is old and dies? What happens if the buyer dies? So those are interesting questions. And I actually own, I think, 3 houses of dead people. One of my, and it's funny that comes up because on my Grant Teach Me Something, for those of you who don't watch Grant Teach Me Something, you really should. You should tune in every Wednesday at 11 o'clock a.m. on Propelio's Facebook. So it's facebook.com/Propelio app, because apparently there's some Asian girl that hasn't logged into Facebook in years. That's name is Propelio. So you go to /Propelio app every Wednesday at 11 a.m. I'll be there teaching just some random topic, okay? And we're open for questions and that kind of stuff too. But it's a very less detailed version of some of the information that you guys are getting in your academy. But it's just kind of what's on my mind for that day. And we had this question come up this last week. So what happens if the seller of a house is old and dies? And like I said, I think I have three houses where my seller is dead. I'm going to grab my drink from behind the camera here, excuse me. Now, one of those was actually an interesting story because the seller actually died, and I'm trying to remember, but I think it was within hours, if not the next day of our closing on the property. Now, here's the thing, is with that particular situation, the seller had a lot of equity. We did a mixture of strategies, kind of like I've shown you guys how to do with the free and clear properties. I mixed that with Subject 2, so we gave them a lien on top of the amount that was owed. And this house, we only owed to the bank, I think, like $9,000 or $12,000, and I gave the seller $25,000 or $30,000 second lien. But the whole thing with him is that the seller wanted to skip his son with his inheritance. The seller knew he was not going to be living for very long, and he needed a way to get that money down to his grandson. Well, we paid for the legal work to make sure that this money was put into a trust and put into an area that would go straight to the grandson whenever father died or grandfather died. And that's one of the reasons we were able to get the deal. It's because you always got to figure out how to help the seller. What's going to be mutually beneficial for you? I always talk about this all the time. Like, we're not in here just to beat people up on price. And I mean that. We're not here to beat people up on price. We want to give something that works for them and that works for us. But this is a massive sidetrack to say, when a seller of a house dies, it can go a couple of different ways. Now, in my experience, and in the experience of the people that I know, one of the things that we do is we turn in that power of attorney immediately whenever we close on the deal. We turn in that authorization to release information immediately whenever we close on that deal. And that should stay in place. Now, unless somebody reaches out and tells the bank that your seller has died, it basically goes on business as normal with the bank. And I have not had it come up any other way for us. Now, if the bank knows that the seller has died, then it can have to go through probate and those kinds of issues and kind of get cashed out in that way. And there's different options there, but I would recommend talk to your attorney at that point in time if that becomes an issue. I don't want to be construed as giving legal advice. But the short answer to this really long answer that I'm giving is that it should be just business as usual. The power of attorney does technically die along with the person that you have the POA for. There's not something other than being the executor, the executrix of a probate through the will that allows you to keep making decisions for them posthumously. if that's the way to use that word. You mentioned a couple of other law offices beside Horn that can draw up contacts. Can you provide us with the name of those offices? Okay, so before I do that, and yes, I will, of course. Before I do that, I really recommend that you guys read through the contracts that you're getting, really feel comfortable with what's going on. I have interviewed basically everybody in Texas, and Scott Horn is who I use, Horn and Associates. Again, full disclosure, he and I are partners, but I was using him as a closing agent before our partnership. Our partnership came from that. Now, again, full disclosure, we are literally right now splitting up assets and splitting that partnership up and breaking that down. So we are no longer going to be partners. But I still believe that he has the best stuff for your subject to things. Now, other law offices here in Texas that would be something that would work for you guys. There's Galen Rogers, or Lonergan. It's changed a couple of times. Galen Lonergan. Lonergan is her maiden name. Rogers is her married name. For those of you who are in Dallas, she's over at 635 and 75. But again, anybody in Texas would be able to use that. And then with many of these attorneys, they will be able to help you. Like I know Scott and his law firm can help you by talking to the attorneys if you are not stateside, because we've got several people here. I mean, I've got people watching from California. I've got people watching from the Dakotas. Where else do we have? We've got people all over the country. So I just want to make sure that Chicago, I just want to make sure that everybody understands these are guys that can help you too. It may cost a little bit more initially, but you do want to pay the money to find somebody that's going to work well for you. So like Scott can work with your attorneys in your state local attorney to make sure that they're doing the right stuff and they know what they're talking about for you. I do recommend going to the meetup groups, going to your investor clubs if you are not state local to Texas, to talk to those guys about who are they using for their closings, that kind of stuff when they're going about subject to, and be very specific about subject to, and you really want to look for somebody that does a lot of subject to. You want to look for somebody that has clients doing sub 2 that are doing 5, 6, 8 a month. That would be one of the questions that I would ask an attorney if I'm trying to figure them out. What is the most volume that one of your clients does? Okay. And ideally, you want them to have a few clients that are doing multiple deals a month with this process, because as we've seen with some of the, well, I won't name, some of the wholesaling shops and stuff, there are businesses out there that get a ton of people to come in and do 1 or 2 deals with them. But if you've got these people that are doing multiple deals a month, constantly coming back to the same person, that's typically a good shout of somebody to work with. And then somebody else that I really like a lot is my best friend, the guy that I love. Gosh, why am I forgetting his name? Can tell you where his office is. It's off of Preston and Park. He's gonna kill me. I'm sorry, man. You're gonna kill me. I cannot remember. Matthew Aycock. So it's Aycock and Pratt and something like that is his partnership. But Matt Aycock, get with him. He's another really sharp guy. He's very smart. He does a lot of owner financing. He knows how to handle things. And again, he's going to be one of the most conservative and most lawyerly of lawyers that you're going to get out of that group of 3, and will be able to help you, again, out-of-state lawyers, that kind of stuff. But Scott, by far, is the guy that does the volume. That's the guy that I go with all of my stuff. Okay, so I had another couple of questions pop up. Let's say, if we don't have Facebook, can we still watch the monthly presentation from Propelio? It's actually weekly. It's every week on Wednesday. And yeah, I'm actually working on that right now. See, well, long story short, it's eventually going to be up in your Academy dashboard. It's just, frankly, we only have so much manpower. We're really trying to stay on top of. We got a huge response of people coming into this, which is awesome, and I love helping you guys out. But my priority is to help you out first and foremost. So my personal mentor students, my group mentor students, and then everybody online, that is my priority. I'm making sure that I'm taking care of you guys, and whatever I can fit in for improvements on the website outside of that is what I'm doing at that point in time. So let me go through here and just make sure. I had another question, I believe, but I could be wrong on that. Yeah, no, I guess that gets it. Okay, cool. So these live videos, they should be up the next day. This last video that we did is taking a little bit longer to get up there just because we're running into some permissions issues that are going weird on it. But yes, they should be going up the next day. If not, within that week. But my goal with my tech guy is that it's up by the next day at 11:30 in the afternoon, or morning, I guess would be. So that's when we'll be putting these guys up for you. Now, if anybody else has any questions, I'm going to do my normal wave. This is my big old wave so that I can track myself on the video over here and see when you see what I'm talking about, since we are on a delay here. We'll be wrapping up here pretty shortly because I have been able to get through the questions that were presented to us. But we've got a lot of people watching, a lot of lurkers, so this is cool. I hope that y'all are gathering some great information from this. This is something that I enjoy doing for you guys. And if you have any questions throughout the week that pop up for you, you can email them to me. It's less of a guarantee for me to get those done versus looking at them right here, because it is harder to keep up with the emails that are coming in on those. But if you have some of those email questions, just shoot them to me. You can shoot them at mail, M-A-I-L, at CreativeCashFlow.com. And that way it's something that I can see throughout the week, and I'll put that on my list of things to go over with you guys this evening. Now, before we wrap up, I will leave you with just a couple of quick tips, something that came up in one of my personal mentoring classes this last week, which was about how do you have somebody else answering the phones for you and setting schedules and scheduling appointments, that kind of stuff. This is a very important item to be aware of, because a lot of you have full-time jobs. A lot of you, this is your second full-time job, and you're not able to answer the phones all the time. And then there's, even that next step. Like myself, it's not necessarily that I have a full-time job, but I am able to afford to have staff who can answer phones for me. Now, how do you properly handle that? How do you get that to work for you as you've got leads coming in? One of the things that I like to have done in that aspect is I like to tell my person who's answering the phones, basically all they're there for is rapport building. They are there to make the person like us. So if you're going to have somebody answer phones, you want them to be super friendly, that person that somebody, people are friends with immediately. I don't get them to ask any negotiation type questions. So the questions that I get them to ask, and I can actually log in here for you. Hold on, and I'll show you. The questions that I have them ask are all based on just data, just pure data, stuff that I need to know for the deal to work. So one of the things that I always want to make sure that you understand is not to be afraid to ask things like, what do you owe on your property? How much do you owe? What's your interest rate? That kind of stuff. If you ask that with confidence, then people answer. They give you the answer that you're looking for. Now, you might be intimidated to ask them at first, and your intimidation is going to come through, and it might scare some people off from telling that to you, but I want you to understand that if you're getting a no, if you're getting somebody saying, I'm just not comfortable telling you that, don't worry. It's probably just because you're nervous asking it for now. If you get past that nervousness and you start being willing to just ask, because we got to remember, these guys are calling you. They want you to buy their house. They are giving you permission. You are the professional. They are giving you permission to ask them questions about their property. So the questions that I have her ask, one, very important, why are you looking to sell, right? That should always be your very first thing that you talk to somebody. Anytime you talk to somebody on the phone that you know is looking to sell, who's reached back out to you. So this is a little bit different than like if you were to skip trace some people and reach out to them. This is if they're reaching back to you from some mail, so anything like that. Anything that's saying, hey, I want you to buy my house. First question, why are you looking to sell? Next question is the home vacant? Okay, we want to know if it's vacant or tenant occupied. Are you willing to sell for what you owe? This is my absolute favorite question. Are you willing to sell for what you owe? Is the Poncho's flag goes up and everybody in the whole room knows you contract that house, okay? You contract that house. If somebody says they're willing to sell for what they owe, you send them a DocuSign, you send them something over the phone. On that very day, on that very hour, you get it contracted. And here's what I want you to say is that, I want you to say, I understand that you're willing to sell for what you owe. I'm not here to beat you up about price. I know that that is the lowest that you can sell it for. If you're selling it for what you owe, I'm not going to try and make you come to the closing with table. So here's what we'll do. So that you know that I'm committed to this, I will send you a contract right now through the email. You can sign it on your phone, and that way we can get this process started. Now you don't have to worry about talking to anybody else. We've got you taken care of. But the next step is I'm going to need to come look at it tonight, tomorrow, sometime like that, just to make sure that everything is in place like it should be and that kind of stuff. But I'm sure it is. Again, there's nothing more you can do. So we're going to get you taken care of. Then you send them a sub-2 contract over the phone. If they are not willing to sell for what they owe, then she asks what their asking price is. What is it that you were looking for? And then the follow-up to that is, how did you arrive at that price, okay? Because we can't just have them throw out a willy-nilly number. We need to know why they arrived at that price. All of these are things that are giving you ammunition for your negotiation. Then they're going to ask all the loan information, obviously the loan amount, arrearages, interest rate, monthly payment, is the taxes and insurance included in that monthly payment, is MIP or PMI included on that, who is the lender, do they remember when they got the loan, approximation is okay, if it, early 2012, or late, whatever, what do they remember? That gives us some initial information. We're going to look it up through our deed research, but it still gives us some information there. And that's it. That is what their job is to do. I'm sorry, one more. There's repairs at the bottom, and I don't ask them, what kind of repairs does your house need? And make that my final question. Yes, we'll ask them, okay, do you need any kind of repairs, that kind of thing. And either they'll go on this long list, or they'll be like, no, everything's fine. If they say everything's fine, our follow-up is, if you had $5,000 just for repairs, what would you use it on? Then you can get a little bit of information. Well, I've got a leaky this, or my tile in the bathroom is cracked, or blah, 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 blah. They're actually a little bit more willing to tell you some stuff when you give that. And that's all that person does. That's all that my initial phone call does. And the cool thing about that is, literally probably 80% of the time when I'm on a buy appointment, they make a point to tell me how impressed they were with my phone call person at the beginning, because they feel good. They didn't get pressured. A lot of times, people are getting pressured on that first call, and we don't want that. So what my first person does is ask all those questions, and then she asks them, okay, when is a good time for somebody from our acquisitions team to go out there? Give me 2 good times for you, and then we'll get that figured out. We like to get there sooner than later, so if you've got a time today, let's do today. But otherwise, when are 2 good times for you? And then our seller's going to tell us 2 good times. Then that girl is going to tell me, / my acquisitions team, whoever's going on that appointment. Now, as somebody who may be the only person on your acquisitions team, here's the cool thing that you get to do, is that when you decide to do that lead, now your job, as soon as that phone call gets done, you may wait a little bit, you may wait 30 minutes or so in between, because you need to do a little bit of digging yourself, because that's when you would want to look into comps, that kind of thing, before you're going on that appointment. The person who makes your appointment is going to tell them, give me the 2, and then at the end, after that, they're going to say, okay, well, let's just default. We're going to be there for this one, but I'm going to have somebody from the acquisitions team call you back and just confirm on that, okay? So if you don't hear back from us for whatever crazy reason, we're going to be there at this point in time. So you've got a date secured in their mind. Then, as the person who owns the company, you call them 30 minutes later, whatever, and you're going to say, hey, this is Tom. I'm the owner of, Tom Buys Houses. And I saw your house, and it's a neighborhood I really like, and I just wanted to reach out to you personally and see what we could get going with this one. So I know you already talked to, in my case, Fabiola. I know you already talked to Fabiola, but I'm going to make you repeat some of the same questions, just so I want to make sure that we're on the same page. But what is it? What's making you want to sell? What's going on? And you make them answer that question again, okay? Because now they're really committing to why they want to sell, and psychologically, you're showing them, hey, I can afford to have somebody on staff who's there just to be nice and gather information for me. And then when they say somebody from our acquisitions team will call back and the owner of the company calls back, boom, you are now postured as the authority. You have just gotten authority from not only the person answering the phone, who, by the way, I might add, I always have them throw in something like, if they know who they're going to send on the appointment, if it's the acquisitions team or me, because one of the things is you need to share your Google Calendar with everybody. And you can set it up so it says, only show as busy. It doesn't show what you're actually doing. But everybody on your acquisitions team should be sharing their calendar with each other, so that your phone person can tell what appointments work. So if they know that they're sending somebody on there, then they're going to say, well, hey, I'm going to send Betsy to call you back on this one. She's amazing. She does a great job at figuring out how to help people that are in your exact situation. And then call out something about their situation. She's great about helping people who are facing foreclosure. She has great ideas and can really make sure that you're going to be taken care of on that. That little endorsement, long story short, is huge. Okay, so you get that endorsement at the end. But then if you have that endorsement and you call back as the owner, boom, whammy, 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 you have all this authority. Now this person's really tuned into what you're saying, because you can afford to have staff on staff that is really good at making them like you, or making them like them, your staff. And the staff is like, hey, I'm going to send somebody, and then the owner calls back. So those are the quick tips. That's how I want you to handle your initial calls. When you can afford to get somebody else to answer the phones for you, I want you to get somebody else to answer the phones for you. Now, even before you can afford to do that, you can do that through partnerships, through, hey, for every phone call that you take, for every phone call that you make, I'll pay you X amount of dollars. Or for every good appointment that you set up, this is an appointment where they're genuinely interested. Even if we don't get a contract, I'll give you X bonus. Or for every closing that I get through phone calls that you do, I'll pay you X%. Okay? You can kind of handle that however you want to get people before you can afford that staff. But either way, I want you to have somebody answering the phones that helps you out at that beginning stage who will answer the phone every time. Now, if you're really good with that phone rapport building, get it. But I like the fact that I've got somebody else answering the phone who's specifically there for rapport, who's specifically there to make people like them, and then they are able to give a resounding testimonial for me or my staff member that's going to go out there, and it really helps psychologically for us to close the deal. So I believe I've gotten everybody taken care of on questions. Obviously, like I said, our Q&A replays will be available for you. Should be the next day. Again, my apologies. This last one, we've had a little bit of troubles with the permissions that are coming through. We're really having to learn the YouTube system and what they are and aren't allowing us to do on that kind of stuff, and even within our membership site, getting that done. But that actually both should be up for you guys tomorrow by noon Central Time. So wherever you are, just kind of convert that. But thank you for being here. And again, tell your friends. I love hearing from you guys. I love hearing success stories because it just really encourages me. I met with somebody down in Austin, Richard, who's actually on the site right now. Met with him down in Austin. It was really cool. He told me, man, I watched your stuff about the free and clear purchases, and it blew my mind. He bought 3 free and clear properties the exact same way that I taught to do it with that next day. Went out and just like that, because he's already an advanced investor. This stuff is not just for people who are trying to get in. This is somebody who's done a lot of houses over the years. This guy was, I won't say too much about his personal history just to not sell him out, but he was a executive level at two of the very large tech industry people that is a household name kind of tech industry, executive VP of stuff at these jobs. Sharp guy, did a lot of business, and still was able to, when they found these videos, signed up immediately, and then the next day was able to buy 3 houses with that strategy. So I love hearing about stuff like that. If you have any kind of success stories, I really want to hear about them. I really want you to let me know. So shoot me an email, shoot me a chat message on here, anything like that. I want to hear what you guys are doing. And as you have questions, as those things build up, get ready for our Monday night Q&A sessions every week, except for the second Monday of the month, when we go to a restaurant here in Dallas and get together in person and talk things over there. But until next week, I really appreciate you guys being here. Watch the replays. Let me know as you have questions come up, and I'm going to let you guys go. So keep on learning, keep on having a good time,